Yeah, this isn't...
We normally start out by me making fun of you somehow.
What is there to be made fun of? Macaroni and cheese with bacon? Is that funny?
Is that bacon?
Yeah.
Is that funny? It's not really funny.
It's just not healthy.
It's not good for you. Yeah.
Whatever.
Those look like bread. Those look like those look like breadcrumbs more than bacon.
Oh.
Do you know that pigs are even more emotionally intelligent than dogs, and the only reason we eat them is because they're not as cute as dogs?
Yes.
Can you, like, how would you feel if we were eating dogs? You know, you wouldn't like it. You know what I mean? So, but it's okay for you to eat bacon?
It's already there. It's already done.
You mean it's already dead? What if the dog was already dead? Would you go, well, no one killed this dog?
If me not eating bacon could make it to where no pigs ever got killed again, I'd immediately do it. But I know if I stop eating it, it'll still die.
That's a defeatist attitude, Brad.
Yeah. But also, I know it's unhealthy, so I hardly ever eat it. So today was my bacon day. I had the bacon cheeseburger and bacon in my mac and cheese.
Well, hold on. You had the bacon cheeseburger yesterday.
No,
You saved it?
Yeah.
That's one thing you can do that I can't do.
Oh.
Like a fast food, like bacon cheeseburger or something. Mm-hmm. I will not eat it tomorrow. I'll eat it today, but if it gets old and not old, but if it just been sitting around soggy, I won't do it.
Oh. I've been poor and disabled for a long time, so I've gotten good.
What does disabled have to do with, like,
it means
willingness to eat disgusting shit?
I don't necessarily feel like getting up and warming. Yeah, is that a mosquito?
It's a mosquito.
I knew it. You went through the whole thing with the paper. You still got it?
Yeah, of course I got it.
What's with the paper? Just do it with your hand like a man.
I don't want mosquito guts and blood all over my hand. Like, that's how you get STDs.
That's why you wash your hands.
That's why.
STDs.
You get blood transferred, like, diseases. Like, you know.
Okay.
You act like you've never heard of that before. That is how diseases are transferred, by fluids, bodily fluids, you know. And mosquitoes.
I've never heard someone say STDs
well,
from mosquitoes.
Well, I'm not fucking the mosquito.
That's what I'm saying.
But, I mean, if it's transferred, like, they suck the blood of somebody who's got a disease, I smack it and there's some sort of a cut on my finger, I now have the thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Didn't your grandmother ever worry about you? My grandmother told me all this shit when I was a kid.
I just wash my fucking hands.
Yeah, but after that, it's too late.
You want to know...
Don't you know pregnancy prevention? Sometimes teenagers think that if they rinse themselves really clean after they have unprotected sex that they won't get pregnant. It's too late at that point.
But how about this scenario?
Because why am I more worried about this than you? You worry about everything.
You're worried about not getting it on your hands. You don't get to kill it. It gets away, and because of that, you then get STDs.
Somebody didn't put their phone on silent.
I've had to have this discussion with myself because I hate roaches and I have to kill and murder every single one I see. Mm-hmm. Like, I will tear apart the kitchen if it gets away. I will murder it.
Yeah.
But there have been a couple of times where, because I hesitated because I wanted to get a paper towel or something. Yeah. So I just decided I'm going to murder that effing thing as soon as I see it, however as quickly as I can, and then I'll wash my hands.
You're not going to get a disease from a roach, though. Well, you might turn into a radioactive. You might turn into like a superhero or radioactive, like, you know, super strength or something like that.
I have a friend that you know who he is. You would not want any part of that roach on you because it has been in all of that stuff.
I don't want roaches on me. That's for damn sure. But
because that's everything. That's human blood, whatever is in and out of a human is that roach is touched. I am not putting. That roach I am not touching for sure.
Yeah, I don't want to either. But
okay.
Welcome to this week's Movieisms.
Although
Hereditary.
The thing we're gonna talk about how. Couple of subjects we want to touch is how horror movies seem to be rinse and repeat or copy and paste. Mm-hmm. With the typical same old jump scares, all that stuff. Good horror, because good horror, I don't want to say reinvents, but doesn't tries to do it better, different but better, isn't afraid to try something different.
Yeah.
That's Hereditary is unlike any horror movie you've seen before. Your brain is fighting the entire time to figure out what kind of a movie is this? What am I watching? How should I feel right now?
Yeah. Just details,
Hereditary, right?
Details of the movie. It's got Toni Collette in it, who is the mom. Who if you only know her from one thing, you know her from The Sixth Sense. She was the mom in The Sixth Sense. And it's got Gabriel Byrne, and if you only know him from one thing, he's the guy from he's one of the characters in The Usual Suspects. The son's name, I'm trying to remember. I meant to look it up beforehand.
I've never seen.
Yeah, he's been in stuff.
I've seen the girl in something before.
Oh, really? Because she's the one I didn't think I'd seen before. The son is named Alex Wolff, and he was in Patriots Day. Oh, he actually played one of the Boston Marathon bombers in Patriots Day. He played the younger brother.
I kept falling asleep. I haven't seen it all the way through.
He was also the young Spencer character in Jumanji. He was like the young version of the characters.
Oh.
The new Jumanji. So he's been out there. He's been doing some things. The daughter, her name is Millie Shapiro.
You can't forget her face.
And I don't think first of all, she doesn't look like they have her look in the movie. They make her look a lot grungier in the film.
Yeah, but that's soft lighting and maybe a little Photoshop and makeup.
Yes. Anyway, so Hereditary is a horror movie, and the trailer makes it look like it's going to be... There's really not a whole lot we can actually talk about in this review, because...
At least until the end.
Everything gives something away, because everything is either a quiet clue, or it's right in front of your face and you don't know what you don't know it's a clue because you don't know what's going on.
The fun of the movie is that the trailer tricks you into thinking it's one thing.
Yeah.
And then you get something else.
So,
and even halfway through the movie, it's one thing.
Yeah. And I think what works, there's a couple of things that work about this. First of all, I don't really like horror movies. I like good horror movies, like The Exorcist or The Shining.
Did you like Babadook?
I did like the Babadook.
Babadook?
Babadook.
Is it Babadook or Babadook?
I think it's Babadook.
Bab or Bob?
And what I liked about Babadook is that the thing is, Babadook, it's weird, the Babadook, if you want to talk about that, it's not even really a horror movie. It's got some supernatural elements to it.
Like a suspense thriller?
It's got some like supernatural elements to it, but it's really a movie about a mom and a son grieving over the loss of their husband, the dad. I think it was the dad.
Yeah, but I feel like the whole time I was watching it, there's a little bit of dread. Like,
there's dread.
Something's going to happen, and then, you know.
Yeah, and that was another one that did a good job of, I think, using something that wasn't used like family grief. If you ever watch the Babadook, there's a death early in the movie that sends a mom and her son off into a emotional, like a grief spiral.
So that is something in common with Hereditary.
Yeah. And so Hereditary, I don't really care for a lot of horror movies, especially what I constantly refer to as PG-13 horror movies. Movies that maybe just have, maybe they're like thrillers with a lot of blood.
And nowadays, they usually have some kind of a gimmick, and it relies solely on these jump scares where you're looking at somebody sitting in a car, in the driver's seat of a car, and you're really close up and on their face, and then all of a sudden somebody bangs on the window, on the driver's side window, and then the music goes bang really loud, and you're really more scared by the sound that just happened.
It's the loud noise. Loud noises aren't scary because it's horror. It's scary because they trick you and it pops up on you.
Right.
It's not part of it's a cheap trick.
Right.
Sometimes they're done really well, like totally unexpected, and it's part of what's going on in the scene. Other times it's just like suddenly it gets quiet, and then suddenly someone knocks on a window. It's not, it's not really scary.
I immediately hate movies.
So PG-13 horror movies are movies that I would say are for teeny boppers to go out and on dates to go see.
What about The Meg, which at first I thought was a Family Guy joke?
No,
if
Meg,
you watch Family Guy, the Meg is everyone hates Meg.
Is The Meg supposed to be a horror movie?
The Megalodon?
Yeah.
They called it The Meg.
I know, but is it supposed to be a horror movie?
It's a shark that eats everyone. Is Jaws a horror movie or just a
I would
thriller?
say Jaws is a horror movie. Jaws is almost always in the horror section.
So what's the difference between the Megalodon and
Jaws was a good movie? I know, I haven't seen
But
The
I'm
Meg
saying
yet.
it's horror. It's still horror.
I don't know, is it?
Yeah.
Maybe horrible.
The Samuel...
Horrible.
the movie where the shark ate Sam Jackson, that's, I'd say, considered a horror movie.
Is that... Oh my god, Sam Jackson died in a movie?
You didn't see the movie where the shark jumped up and...
The Deep Blue Sea?
By the way, spoiler, but I haven't told you what movie it was, so...
Is it Deep Blue Sea?
You spoiled it, because they didn't know what movie I was spoiling
that
until you named it.
That movie's 20 years old. If they haven't seen it yet, they might not be, But, so, I don't really... I personally don't like... I have not seen... any of the 80s slasher films. Like
I've seen everyone.
Freddy, Halloween. I've not seen any of them. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think I saw the remake of that. But I don't think I ever saw the original. I
haven't liked any of the...
It's not that I don't like horror movies, but what I like about horror movies are things that crawl under your skin and make you really... reconsider, should I have actually seen this?
I like the ones that make you think that it sort of off-puts you when you leave the theater, where you're thinking, is that something that could actually be or have happened? That maybe when it's done in such a way. Like M. Night Shyamalan's The Thing with the Aliens.
Signs.
Yeah. When something's like that where it makes sense to... Where they explain it in a way where you could have gone this whole time without knowing that ever existed, but it happens to you.
I, like my two favorite horror movies. I'm actually going to say I have three favorite horror movies, and one is Fire Walk with Me, the David Lynch Twin Peaks movie.
I've never seen that because
it's disturbing.
I guess I'll have to see it.
Truly, truly disturbing.
I just never got into Twin Peaks.
The Shining.
The Shining?
Which, by the way,
let's
not in any sense any way original, because, I think a lot of people... And The Exorcist. The Exorcist truly made me, like, cringe and look over my shoulder and stuff. Because I'd never seen The Exorcist until they released the version you've never seen before in theaters. And it was, like, maybe 20 minutes longer or something like that. Mm-hmm. I went to see it. And again, because I'd never seen it, I was creeped out by it.
Yeah.
Like, it gets to you.
That's one of those that I was talking about that's truly scary, that horrifies you when you leave. Because it's sort of a thing that might actually exist. I mean, there's proof that exists. And if you're religious at all, you're taught to believe that exists.
Yeah. So
it's very believable. And I think most of us has had some kind of a ghost... what do you call it? We all have a ghost story. Even if we don't believe it, we've had something that happened to us that we can't explain. So all of us, I think, subconsciously, we all believe that there's something going on there. So a movie like that, I think that's why most of the horror movies are like with ghosts and stuff, because that's the most believable.
So I've never seen any of the what I would call blockbuster horror movies, like that.
What is a blockbuster horror?
Like I would,
like when you get it
Freddy,
blockbuster.
the Friday the 13th,
You mean the popular ones?
The popular, like the ones that have like giant franchises behind them.
Yeah,
I've just never seen it, and at this point I'm not opposed to it, but the horror movie, those 80s horror movies.
Yeah.
There's a big gap in my list of movies that I've seen, and it's the 80s horror movies.
I would tell you to see the original A Nightmare on Elm Street, and not the other ones.
Yeah.
Because that one is... that sort of created. I don't want to say it created its own genre, but it definitely did some things that hadn't been done before, and a lot of movies have repeated since.
Yeah.
And then when you get into sequels, it sort of dilutes.
Yeah.
How great, just like with Saw, the first Saw movie. I want to tell everyone, if you can tolerate a horror movie, you should see Saw. That's sort of weird to say every time I say it, because it's unlike. I still claim that it created the new genre, what do I call it, torture porn.
Yeah, torture porn.
Because, and even though it didn't show you anything, but it was so well crafted, it was low budget in a room, but most of the stuff was sound effects, things people said, the situation, and the stuff that happened off screen. That's what scared you, your imagination. So that I would say the first one, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to try to make myself watch the first of all of them. Halloween, the Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
What's the other one? Texas Chainsaw.
You're not going to like Friday the 13th.
That's the one with Freddy, right?
No, that's the guy with the ski
Jason,
mask.
the Jason mask. Right. Oh, Nightmare on Elm Street is the one with Freddy.
That's Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
But if you want to talk about recent, because I could
talk about your favorites.
I could go into movies that scarred me when I was a kid. That's one thing I was gonna tell you about, is that I think that's one of the things that got me into filmmaking. I think watching the movie, being frightened, terrorized by it for a week or two after. Like, there were movies, these aren't my favorites, but they were impacted me. Like Twilight Zone, I must have been really young, 5 or 6 or something. Twilight Zone, the movie, the thing on the wing of the plane, even the story about the kid with the abilities to alter reality, like the stuff with the what was it, a Jack in the Box thing?
Is that the farmer kid? The farmer kid?
Yeah. Yeah, the lady comes into town and everyone's afraid of the kid.
Yeah.
Oh man,
it's weird though that I don't even ever think of that as horror.
That's what I'm saying.
I think of that more of science fiction or supernatural stuff. However, it's in the spooky realm.
Supernatural tends to be horror.
It's just that Twilight Zone was a PG movie. In my mind, there's nothing terrifying in a PG movie.
I was 6.
Except for bad writing.
The thing on the plane was terrorizing.
That was scary. That was scary.
I didn't want to be near a window at night.
That's John Lithgow.
For 2 weeks after that, especially that night.
To this day, when I fly, I think about that scene in Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But another movie, and it's weird, it's not a horror movie, but Ghostbusters, but the scene when the demon hands came out of the recliner chair. I couldn't sit in a chair for a couple weeks. But that terrorized me. I had a lot of nightmares. I can remember all my nightmares almost. But my childhood is a wash. Dreamscape. I believe that's sort of a horror movie, but that's another supernatural thing where people go into other people's dreams.
Yeah, I never saw that.
You've never seen that.
Yeah.
But there was this dude inside the dream that he got the head of a cobra snake and then jumped through a window, and then, like, for another week, I didn't want to be near a window because I kept thinking I was going to jump through the window. But for me, the classics would be Nightmare on Elm Street. I was a huge Freddy fan.
Yeah,
I loved everything Freddy.
I never saw Nightmare on Elm Street, but I did hear people like quoting Freddy.
Oh yeah,
and I thought, that's not scary to me. That's just dumb. It's campy. It got too campy, so I never took.
As the sequels kept coming,
I never took the original seriously because what I knew. I mean, what was I? I must have been 10, 12, 13. I was never interested in them because even then I was, I guess, a dialogue snob. It was like, it's like...
Yeah. Well, the sequels are what diluted it. But the original... And they even tried to do some of the... There was a remake with the guy... I forget. He was in The Watchmen. He played Rorschach.
Yeah, Rorschach.
From The Watchmen.
Yeah.
I still love the first one way better. It is so much. The first one is one of those movies that gets into your head because, like the concept of, and that's one thing about that they put in Dreamscape, but that I think that Nightmare on Elm Street did the best was the idea of if you die in your dreams, you could die in real life. Because in Dreamscape, it was like you'll have a heart attack or something.
To this day, that seems like set in stone.
Even though it's not true.
Yeah.
But at that, if that was something, it was plausible. So when you see, so then it makes what's happening in the dream feel more real. But there are so many disturbing that really to your core. It's not like campy or like the other movies became with all the, get ready for prime time, bitch, and then slam her head into the TV. It's not that kind of stuff. Yeah. But it just really gets to you. But recently, Stephen King's It, the new It.
The new It, yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, the new It was good.
I've seen like every horror. Nothing scares me, but that. Jumping through.
I thought that was a good movie. I loved it. I think I saw it 3 times in one weekend. Like
Maybe.
it's not.
I think you saw it too much.
It's not something that I would normally do. Go see a movie. In fact, I don't normally see movies multiple times. Horror movies, I will see multiple times because I'll go see them and make sure it's okay for my daughter to see. Sometimes I'm right and sometimes I'm not right. But when I saw it, and then I think I saw it with you, and then I think I saw it with my daughter.
You saw it with your daughter before you saw it with me, because after seeing it twice, you're like, Brad, you've got to see it.
I was not ever scared by it. It didn't ever creep me out, but I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, when it jumped out of the movie screen,
well, it does make you. That is an effective jump scare.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Movies don't do that to me.
Yeah.
But that moment kind of solidifies it in recent memory. That's a good one.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the second chapter of that.
I have to tell you, the Poltergeist, the original, that movie. Oh man, that made me afraid of the Fuzz TV screen Fuzz. You've never seen the Poltergeist?
Of course I have.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, I think I've seen all 3. I think I've seen the first, second,
and
third one.
Second, or after that, it's just crap. But the first one,
one's good.
So good.
Yeah, it was very good. And that lady, the old lady, is scary.
It's just like you'll never see anything like that ever again. Yeah. And you can't get someone else to anywhere close to that lady, and just as creepy as she was.
Yeah. So how does it all tie into this movie? So now that we've given a little primer on our personal taste in horror movies, or at least my personal taste in horror movies.
Yeah, I haven't. I've seen them all. So
you have I guess a different. I can't figure out why you like some of the things you like. And then I sometimes will assume that, you're not going to like this because it's almost not genre enough. Like this movie that we're talking about now, Hereditary, and we'll talk about in a second, was almost not genre enough early on.
I prefer to see something that's not. Yeah.
It's not. So it definitely, Hereditary is definitely not playing to the horror tropes. It's actually, the trailer took advantage of your assumption. Right. On some of those things.
It's the demon kid or possessed or something.
Right. And it's just definitely not only that. You know what I mean? It subverts the horror genre. Like, it's a subversion of the horror.
Yeah. I love how so abruptly in the movie it's like, yeah, you thought it was that, but it's not. It's all of a sudden, and then what just happened? And they don't show you.
Yeah.
You don't find out what happens until like minutes later because it's not on camera.
And it's, okay, so I'm not saying that it's not a horror movie from the start, because it's creepy and upsetting from the start.
It's disturbing.
But it is more like it starts out, here's a dysfunctional family that's dealing with a couple of different tragedies. They have a tragic timeline in the past before this movie started. Like their whole family lineage is full of like mental illness and suffering and psychological, and then we start this movie, and you can tell from the start pretty much that these people are screwed because they do not stand a chance to have like mental health days. This family doesn't get those. You know what I mean? And it's not really a horror movie. It's more about the family dynamic of dealing with tragedy. And that part is like some of the stuff that they say to each other is just stuff that you would say to your mom or dad or kid if you were like pissed at them for like being an alcoholic or anything. It's the family dynamic that's already messed up before the movie starts. What makes it seem, the characters, the setup of things when the movie starts is like perfectly situated for stuff, and they don't tell you. It just things unfold sort of like it unfolds this way and then this way and then this way.
It's interesting how each act almost seems like a different movie.
It's almost like a different genre of thing.
Because I was just realizing while you were talking that the second half, you almost think that it's another kind of horror movie until you start drifting into the third act, and you start getting hints of it's this other thing, and then the last 10, maybe was it 10 or 15?
I'm going to say 15 minutes, last 15.
Of the movie.
It's a different horror movie.
It just veers way off course, goes off the cliff, tumbles down some other things.
And it's not like it just turns left in the middle of the movie and says, oh, we're this different kind of movie now. It unfolds in such a way that it makes perfect sense. The next thing that happens is the next thing that happens. Yeah. It's not an extreme thing. It's not out of left field or anything. It just a slow like build towards the thing.
And also, because you saw it a second time, but I noticed some things watching it the first time, and you even brought up one of them, like when she opened the page of the book, and you're like, I was able to read parts of that book before they cut away. There are parts, if you're paying attention, they're telling you what's happening.
Yeah. So Toni Collette, anything that's great about this movie, anything that's truly great about this movie, its visceral like nature, like my reaction to it is stemmed through Toni Collette's performance, which, by the way, is so gripping in a way. Like, you watch her slip into madness.
Yeah.
And it's hard to watch at times, and not because of the horrible stuff, but some of the stuff that she's just, like, mentally having to deal with are some of the things she says to her family, are so brutal and cold that she's just, it almost seems like she's just a bitch, but she's not, because she has suffered her entire life leading up to this point, and she's at a breaking point, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But her performance is so, convincing is the word I was trying to think of. It's so convincing that you are right there with her. And it just grabs you. Like, it's emotional. It's an emotional performance that you don't really see in a lot of horror movies. You see a lot of overacting in horror movies. Like, well, why are we, and then you see people running up the staircase when they should be leaving the house. None of that stuff happens in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
You see her doing things that make perfect sense to you, and you would, if you were in that situation, you would also not want to let it go. You would like, Yeah.
That's the other nice thing about this movie, because it's hard for me to think of a horror movie I've seen that doesn't follow at least the story structure of, like, in the beginning you set up the rules, give hints as to what it is, then bad stuff starts happening and you kind of sort of see the creature, get a glimpse of it, or whatever it is. And then, like, middle part of the movie is a person trying to figure out what is this and what's going on, and then they, go find out the history of it or whatever, the lore.
Then they try to trick the demon.
Yeah, figure out a way to defeat it. Every movie, I mean, even Nightmare on Elm Street is that way. Jason. It seems like every horror movie has that same thing. This movie is not that. I mean, there is a couple of minutes where Toni Collette's character is looking through this box that had some stuff that she ignored before, but it was just very brief, and it was just her trying to figure out what's going on. It was nothing like, here's the lore. It was just a brief little, this could have something to do with what's going on.
Yeah, and maybe not.
Yeah, it shows you a lot of weird pictures, so you're left to figure out,
oh man,
how do the pictures connect what's going on with the picture?
Fade in, the first image you see in this movie is unsettling, and I saw it again today with my daughter. So you see the obituary. The very first thing you see is an obituary for what you find out is Toni Collette's mom. Mm-hmm. So it's like black with white text. That cuts to a picture of her mom staring like directly into the camera. It's almost like the eyes follow, and I don't think they actually do, but it feels like the eyes are like peering straight at you. You know how like when you get your picture taken and you're looking at the camera and you're smiling? She's glaring at the camera, and it is so it's the first thing you see in this movie. It's so unsettling that you instantly feel like you can't trust that person. You're glad she's dead already. Because there was something wrong with her. But it starts out on such a holy shit, like ugh, and
why do you think they didn't show the one of the more disturbing sudden moments in the movie? Like, you don't see anything at all, any part of it. You don't even see aftermath. You don't get confirmation of what happened. You just see and hear people's reactions. Like, that's why I think the movie is from the boy's perspective, because we only see what he sees. He didn't see it, so we don't see it. And then we're with him when the mother, we just hear her in the back,
Is it? Well, that's a good question. That's the other thing. You don't really see any. You see some upsetting stuff because there's stuff with ants, like bugs, and but you don't really see a whole lot of blood and guts or gore. There's not any gore. There's not any. I won't say there's not any gore,
unless gross naked old people you consider gore, which I do. Especially when they're like bent over and you seeing stuff hanging. That was the most
we have to cut
disturbing
that out.
Part for me.
We can't talk about that yet. We can talk about it in the spoiler section.
You can't. How is that a spoiler? It's just gross.
So I think they didn't show it because it's a slow build. It's a slow build to the stuff, and it's almost like it's almost like they're allowing you the opportunity to tune it out visually, up until things gradually build into the end where you can't look away from things. They don't let you look away.
It's
from
well paced though. Like I don't even want to use the word like slow burn, because enough is going on that you're not missing. You're not saying, well, when something's going to happen, because things are happening.
However, this film. I'm going to call this a film. It's not just a movie. This is a film. It uses silence and like you could call it evenly paced. It's like it uses the silence of things not happening. Like it will sit on someone's face for an extended period of time, and just the sitting there on that person's face starts to make you feel like something's about to happen. It's not even like you were saying, it's not slow. It's just quiet. There are points in this movie where it's so silent that the silence is unsettling. You know what I mean? It's quiet, and you're like, something has got to be about to happen. And the music is very sparse in places. Sometimes it's just like a droning sound, like a like a pulse.
No, it's not soundtrack. Is it the sound design?
The sound design. Yeah.
Just the it's. By the way, we talked about how is it an A24 movie?
A24. Yeah.
So we assumed that it was directed by the same person that did The Witch, but it's not. It's just from the same studios. So
the promotional campaign made me feel like, and I never looked it up. Normally I would have, but I just didn't for some reason, because I feel like I just misinterpreted what they're saying. Anyway, the PR stuff made it look like it was made by the same person who made The Witch, which was a movie that we
don't recommend, but
I loved it for how it felt, sounded, and looked.
Yeah, cinematography, but acting, and the sound.
I did not love it for how what it ended up being. For the storytelling, for the story. Like, it's creepy and upsetting and disturbing, and it has you on edge and everything. So I thought that, but what I think I misunderstood in the trailer is that it's produced by the same people, meaning the same studio made the same movie.
But I will say, if you've seen The Witch, you do sort of know what to expect as far as is it ambiance or
the atmosphere,
and the sound. Yeah. So yes, that is the same, but don't compare this to The Witch. This is way better, and I feel like if you don't like horror movies, you could enjoy this, but if you love horror movies and you're tired of the same old thing, you would enjoy this too.
Yeah.
I feel like you'll get a good scare out of this either way.
There are some very unpleasant things in this movie.
Yeah. But I will tell you, if you can't take horror movies, if they frighten you, or if scary things really mess you up and freak you out, you wouldn't be able to handle the last part of this movie.
Yeah, 15 to 20 minutes,
Yeah.
And because
there are some people that...
What is happening is not something that you expect from the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, like, here's what happens. When you see a horror movie, like, even one that wasn't even bad, that was highly entertaining, was Happy Death Day.
Yeah. I actually enjoyed it.
I enjoyed that movie. It was entertaining. Okay, so it wasn't scary. It didn't, but you know from the first 5 minutes what that movie's going to be from all the way to the end. You don't necessarily know how she's going to solve the specific problem of the Groundhog's Day horror movie that she's in, but you know what that movie is. Fade in. This movie, you do not know what it is, and when it's done, you're sitting there going, okay, so what happened? But I spent more time trying to figure this movie out after I watched it with you that time than I have any movie in a really long time. I went and watched other people's reviews. I went and watched, I read things, I read up on it, I looked into this and I looked into that. The mythology that's in there a little bit, some people say that it's true, it's an actual myth, and sometimes, and some people say that it's completely made up by the filmmakers. But even that lends itself to the thing: is it true or not? Sort of like the Blair Witch Project. Did it happen or not? You know what I mean? So that stuff is all interesting, and I went to see it again because I was still thinking about it, and there were things that I wanted to see it again from the, from having seen it before.
Yeah.
This is the best horror movie I've seen in a long time. I can't even... I don't know when the last great... I'm going to say maybe It Follows. I liked It Follows a lot. Did you ever see that movie?
I think I saw it, yeah.
Okay,
so... on Netflix or something, or HBO.
It Follows... This has a very
Why
similar...
did you like it? I don't know.
I like the ominous tone, like you couldn't get away from it. Whatever it was, you just couldn't get away from it.
From someone who's seen almost every horror movie, I was just after the middle. I was just like, I don't care.
Well,
anymore.
There were parts about It Follows that I didn't like. We can talk about that later.
It was just not.
But for me, the last good horror movie was that. I
remember you talking about Babadook.
Babadook, but I saw the Babadook was
before It Follows.
Yeah, Babadook was out long before that. So the Babadook, but all three of those have that unsettling feeling to them from Fade In. It's just a little bit more of a, for me, it's something that crawls into your head and fucks with you a little bit. I don't, horror movies for me, I'm a writer, I'm a filmmaker, I am not easily tricked by things when I watch them, so in a way I'm a terrible horror movie audience. I don't get sucked into the story very easily. I'm sitting there looking for what it is. I'm okay, so this is the scene where this is going to happen, blah blah. I'm like not really getting pulled into the story.
Yeah.
What does get me there are emotional things. Like this movie with Toni Collette's a very emotional performance that pulled me right in. That distracted me from trying to figure out what the horror element was going to be of the movie. You get pulled into it. As the same thing with Babadook, very emotional performance. In fact, just now sitting here talking to you about this, I'm figuring this out. This is the first time I've ever articulated that. It's the emotional stuff that's almost like this movie, Hereditary, could be a drama where the horrible thing you find out the horrible thing that is revealed is there was a child molester in the family. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It could just be that, and that could be the horrible, but it's a horror movie, so it's not, there's no child molester in the family that we know of. But you know what I mean? It's like that movie could easily just play out as a drama, with just a couple of little tweaks made to the story. So that's what works on me, is that stuff. That's why The Shining works for me. It's like mood and atmosphere, but also you're watching Jack Nicholson's character slip into madness. And the same thing with The Exorcist. I don't remember a whole lot from The Exorcist, but what I do remember is the little girl on the bed possessed, and it's it's so insane that you forget you're watching a movie. It does feel like when you watch The Exorcist that you need to go read your Bible at the end. You're like, holy shit, what did I just watch? It's so there's the satanic nature of it. They did such a good job of capturing it. So we're gonna have a spoiler talk at the end of this. We're gonna wrap this up for now, but we're gonna have a spoiler talk at the end of the show. We're gonna talk about some of our favorite spoilers for this movie. So do not listen past the end of the show if you haven't seen the movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's our discussion on Hereditary. I almost forgot which movie we're talking about now. Hereditary. And again, stay after the end of the show. We're going to talk about some of our favorite spoilery stuff. We don't want to taint the show with. And that's it. If you want to send us an email, we are movieisms@gmail.com. You can check out our website, movieisms.com.
Yeah, you can get all of our links are there. Our personal social medias and all the Movieisms, Facebook and Twitter and all that.
And that's it. That's it for this week. We will see you again next time.
The end. Woo, spooky.
Movieisms is a production of Super Mega Ultra Entertainment and is produced by Michael Beckemeyer and Bradley Kingston. If you'd like to find out more, follow us on Twitter or Instagram. And make sure you click like on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/movieisms. If you're enjoying this podcast, please take a moment and give us a 5-star review in iTunes. It only takes a minute and it helps us out more than you can imagine. Thank you very much, and until next time, we'll see you at the movies. Okay, now we got that.
Okay.
Those pleasantries out of the way.
Spoilers.
Okay, so spoiler.
Hereditary.
Do you
Hereditary.
Hereditary spoilers. Though this movie has one of the biggest what the fuck moments I've seen in a long time.
Like, I think I'm more excited about the decapitation that I didn't see than anything else in the movie, because I was like, what the fuck, for like 10 minutes. I'm like, what the fuck just happened?
The trailer lied to you. It's a creepy daughter. It's like a creepy daughter movie. She's weird. Look, she's weird looking. She makes the weird sound.
Yeah.
When that girl's head gets smacked by the telephone pole through that like tragic accident, it's in a way unavoidable. But you could tell by this time in the movie, you can tell bad things are going to happen to this family, and this is just another bad thing that's happening. But it is brutal. Like, you don't see the head fall off, but you do see the head smack the pole. Like, you see all that stuff, and you hear it. What the hardest thing?
It cuts away before you see. You kind of see and hear a hit, but you don't see any. I don't remember seeing the head bend or anything.
Yeah,
I just remember as soon as the sound.
I'm pretty sure you see the head get thrown back.
I don't see it coming off.
No, it doesn't come off. But both times I've seen it, that was when the audience in the theater like woke up.
Yeah.
Because everybody was like, "Whoa, what? Holy shit!" You heard everybody in the theater just sort of start cursing at the screen at this point.
By the way, that's one of the few times I've experienced recently. There were people audibly, very loudly going like that.
Yeah,
simultaneously, like the
viscerally
theater.
reacting to what they're seeing.
Yeah,
it's a perfect blend of visuals, what you don't see, and what you hear.
Yeah, it was more disturbing not seeing what I didn't see because
it's your imagination.
Because imagining what the person leaving the car that just. I think that's the most horrific thing in the movie is the kid just driving and parking it.
Yeah, total
shock.
And
then me just going through the horrors of, oh my God, if you walked out like just normal day, even before all that happened, I'm thinking, she's going to walk out there thinking it's a normal day. And there's a fucking decapitated body of her fucking daughter just right the fuck there. Oh God.
Yeah, and
you just hear it, and it's all in your head.
It's in your head. You're there to imagine how bad it is. Because I didn't expect it to be decapitated. I expect her face to be totally just like bent inwards, like out of shape, like destroyed. So you don't see it, but then when they do show it to you, it's grotesque. There are like bugs crawling all over it, and you realize that the head was left at the scene of the accident.
Yeah.
It's on the side of the road being chewed up by ants. And the reaction of the mom when she heard that, when she saw her decapitated daughter's body, just moaning and wailing actually it goes on for a solid minute or two in the movie because she's crying outside, she's crying in the bedroom, and then she's moaning and wailing at the funeral as the camera is sinking down into the gravesite.
I think what not showing you the way that was filmed, what I think that does is it makes you feel what the mom is feeling.
Yeah.
Because when she was over there just hysterically crying, I was in my head thinking, imagining that was someone that I loved and their head is gone. Where's their head? Yeah. Oh my God. And then it's just
satisfaction.
How can you get out of that moment of I just walked out and saw that, and then there's this, and then what happened? Where's this? It just.
So there are other clues in this movie that you may not, most likely, like I didn't pick up the first time.
Yeah.
Things like when they are. The one I noticed this time that I really like, it was a subtle thing she said. There's a couple of them like this, and here's the one I can remember is when she goes to Ann Dowd's place, Annie. Was it Annie? No, it's Joni?
The lady that introduces her to the psychic
seance. I think, is it Joni? I think it's Joan. Anyway, the lady who introduces her to the concept of doing a seance. The lady who plants the demon language into her family is like, that whole thing was a complete ruse that you don't know. This, in fact, you start to think, oh, this movie is a seance movie. We're going to bring the creepy kid back. But it was a trick because the lady had supposedly done it,
did it with
her, and then what Toni Collette's character saw was the results of it and thought, oh, like, I'm going to go home and do this too. I'm going to do exactly what I said. And then, but they keep saying, Ann Dowd said something, the character Joan, played by Ann Dowd, said something like, the person had me read this aloud first. Like, I had to read it aloud first.
Oh, and then everyone has to be in the house.
And then she said, you have to, you need everybody has to be in the house. Your husband and your son. And she reiterated, your son has to be in the house. And watching it the second time, knowing what I knew, it wasn't her just saying, you need everybody in the house. What you're sitting there thinking the first time you see it is, yeah, they want all the people's energy in the house. Like, it's going to take all three of you to summon your dead daughter. But what she really meant is, your son is the one we're after. Have him in the house so that the demon can, so that the eighth king of hell can possess your son.
Yeah.
Because he jumps in because he was trying to find a male form to take over.
Which even in the flash of the book, it said something about it. It's jealous of the male form.
Yeah.
Which is funny how, it's funny how it slams his head into the thing. Like, it hates him, but then wants to be him at the same time.
But that was so cool because I realized that
was great acting. The way he reacted, like, what the fuck?
Yeah. On second viewing, and the way he raised his hand, where he's like this, and he couldn't breathe or talk. It's funny because he's resisting it. You don't know what's happening. You think that the thing is taking over, making him do crazy shit to himself.
So that's why it slammed his head.
But he's resisting the thing because when he smacks his head up against the ground, he instantly comes back to himself.
Yeah.
Not onto the ground,
wasn't
but
it multiple times, like 2 or 3?
Yeah, he forced his head down into the desk, and he sat there for a second, and then he came up and then smacked his face down again.
Okay.
And
so he was doing that to get out of the...
Yeah.
Oh.
I
thought the thing was slamming his head. Maybe you're right.
Because as soon as he smacked his head, he came back to himself.
Yeah.
Another thing is the little silver light, the little almost like mirror reflection that shows up when it's signifying the what we know now is signifying the spirit possessing him, or whoever, the spirit that's floating around,
demon, one of the devils.
Yeah, whatever it is. I thought that was cool, and I also thought that. One thing that did not make sense to me in this movie, and still doesn't, even after I saw it a second time and watched and listened to a couple of reviews about this thing, is why does Toni Collette catch on fire when she tries to burn the daughter's book, and then when she goes back and tries to burn it again, the husband catches on fire?
It made sense to me that she was the one that did the invocation, which then tied her to the spell, and the spell was something that from personal to the person, which I guess in this case was the demon-possessed girl and the drawing book and the mother. So to me, those are all the connecting objects to the, summoning of the creature or whatever it is. So it makes sense to me. She's connected to through the spell, so you burn the book, it burns her. But what doesn't make sense is she throws it in and it burns him.
Yeah.
That didn't make sense. That seemed like a quick writer's way of, I can't figure out how to kill the husband, so we'll just do
the closest thing I can come up with, the best thing I can come up with is that demon spirit is bouncing around all over the place. Sometimes it's in Toni Collette, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's in the son, right? So I think the first time she tosses the book into the thing and her arm catches on fire, she is not possessed by the demon at that moment. Okay? So, but when she tosses it in the second time, she is possessed by the demon at that moment. So the demon will not let itself be burned alive.
Her eyes and face changed before she did that? Because I remember
she was just crazy. She was going crazy.
Because I remember that she seemed lucid the whole time she was explaining that to him. And it's like,
right.
We've got to burn this.
Right. Well, she was freaking out. She was going back and forth.
And I thought that after he burned, then all of a sudden her face and demeanor changed as if she was possessed.
Well, what happens is... Well, I don't know about that. But what I do know is that she was possessed... all the way through the end when the other
from that moment
disgusting moment where she saws her body off, saws her, beheads herself. That's when the spirit leaves her body and gets into the sun. So that's all within just a few minutes of each other. So I just thought, well, maybe she's... And now I can't remember. Now I can't remember what happens.
I remember... visual. I'm looking at it in my head.
That's the one thing through my tracing back that still I'm not certain about. Like, I'm not certain about why that happens one way or the other.
Well, I'm certain that after he caught on fire is when her face changed and made me think, oh, it's possessed her now. It happened after he got on fire.
Maybe. I just don't know. I don't. That's the part. I know this movie is well enough thought out to where there's a reason for that.
You think that was the trigger? Maybe that broke the spell and released it? I don't know.
I don't know. I do know that movie is so well thought out. Like, every little detail means something in this movie. That is not something that they just blatantly put in there. It's a reason. And I've listened to a couple of things, a couple different reviews and everything, and everybody has their different theories. And the one that I really stuck with was that she was the one that was possessed, and the demon isn't going to let her destroy himself. So, but I don't know why I picked the dad. Yeah.
Also, I take issue. It seemed like there was a theme with the heads being cut off, like that was part of the ritual, or that had to be done.
It said somewhere in one of the books or one of the writings that he was a collector of heads.
There's no way, the way the accident happened with the girl, there's no way to force. I mean, there was a dog on the road and he swerved. There's maybe a 0.001% chance. And if you did that 100,000 times,
supernatural forces at play.
You couldn't replicate the exact circumstances if you repeated that of him swerving at just the right place, just the right time, and cutting her head off, and her sticking her head out just randomly. All of those things.
Supernatural forces at play. Did you?
But she was choking and she got up to get air.
Yeah.
But I didn't think about that for once, because I'm like, my throat, I can't, I'm not thinking I'll get more oxygen with my head out the window. Anyway.
Well, there's more air out there. But
if it was supernatural, it wouldn't have looked like things that they were doing willingly. It would have, I should have seen her be pushed up, or the window rolled itself down. Then I'd be like, oh.
So, but think about it. When they were going to that party the first time before the accident happened, they did this pan and they stopped on the light post. That post, they're panning the cars just going down the road, and then it stops on the light post, and you see the little Hereditary symbol that the mom and everybody was wearing.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't buy it.
I noticed it the first time, but I couldn't tell what it was because it cut away so quickly. But this time I was looking for it, and it's the little squiggly Hereditary thing.
It just seems, writing-wise, that's way too far to go. There's way more easier ways to cut her head off.
I cannot wait to hear the Q&A or some sort of interview with the writer-director to dispel some of his
It's just so
reasoning
circumstantial.
Yeah.
That is just ridiculous that they put the thing on the and then anyway.
Well, I mean,
the movie's great. There's a couple parts that don't make sense.
And then, there's two more really disturbing parts that are just plain disturbing. where we talked about the one already, is her sawing her head off.
Yeah, it sounded really creepy.
It sounded great. It was that's again where there was silence, and the only thing you heard was the sound,
and then the
of her falling onto the ground. And then the other thing was when she chases him. Before that, when she chases him up into the attic, and she's floating but banging her head up on the.
Sorry, I take back that the most disturbing moment of the movie was her head getting chopped off. Because that made me audibly go, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Because that kind of shit.
Yeah.
That's the shit that goes on in my head that when I'm watching a horror movie, I'm like, it'd be sick if that happened. I mean,
and it happened, yeah.
Her doing that, I was like, both overjoyed, but also, oh my God.
Yeah, it's disturbing. It is really disturbing. So, the ending. So, her body gets sawed off. The little silver floating reflection light thing pops into the son's body, and the mom's body floats up into the creepy treehouse thing that they've been going in and out of the whole time. He walks up there and sees all the naked people, the naked old people, the mom, the headless grandmother, the head of his sister on some sort of mannequin thing with a crown on it, and they're all there worshiping. And then there's the picture of the grandmother that says Queen Lee. I think the mom's name, the grandmother's name was Lee, and it was called. And the picture says Queen Lee. And the son is supposed to be the king. So I don't know why the grandmother's the queen and he's the king. It's weird.
Something about riches too. I don't know about that.
And so then you hear the Joan character again. And you never see the person. You're just looking at this kid's face, the son's face, and she calls him Charlie. And Charlie is the name of the daughter who died, 20 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
And she says something like, "Charlie, don't be scared. You're everything's going to be okay. We have fixed your original female form and made things right." And it's weird because I didn't hear her call him Charlie the first time we saw it. I just heard her talking to him, and he said, "We fixed your original female form." I thought they were talking about the mom, the grandmother, anything. Now we finally, because there's made a big deal about him, one of the 8 kings of hell, wanting to be in a male figure. So I thought it was just, them trying, but they were placing the soul of the daughter into a male, because I think that the idea is that the daughter is one of the 8 kings of hell manifested as a girl. Because if you remember early on when the grandmother died, the daughter's in bed saying, "I want my grandmother, who's going to take care of me?" And the mom says, well, Toni Collette's character says, "Well, I will, of course." And she said, "Well, what if you die?" And she said, "Well, your brother or your dad." And she said...
Yeah, that was gross. Those little figures, and they had the little figure of the old lady with the huge old lady boob hanging out like she was going to feed. That was... Yeah. I've never been so creeped out by little tiny...
I didn't talk about those miniatures at all. Those miniatures are like... Look at Toni Collette trying to control everything. Toni Collette's character is trying to microcosm control everything, setting these things up, and it's futile, But the daughter then says, "Grandma didn't like me. She wanted me to be a boy." And then it was another one of those moments when I was watching it the second time. I was like, "Holy shit!" The grandmother wanted the daughter to be a boy because she's trying to get that payment, that the demon, into her lineage, her family lineage, and it needs to be a boy to do it. And then you think, well, why didn't she just get the grandson from the early start? But in the grieving thing, when she goes to the grieving circle, Toni Collette says, "I never would even let her anywhere near my son." So, and the grandmother was senile for years. It seemed like for years. So she maybe never met the grandson, only in death did she get to like start playing chess with these people's lives.
Okay.
The movie is so thought provoking. It really, like, I'm still thinking about it, and I've seen it twice in the last couple of days now, and I'm still thinking about it. It's so that is how I know I've seen a great movie like this. Like, I'm still trying to put the pieces together, and I loved it. So I highly recommend. We didn't do this part of the thing, but I highly recommend this movie to anybody. So that's our talk on Hereditary. We hope you liked it. We hope you go see the movie.
It's good.
And if you have any ideas on any of the questions we talked about, like the people catching on fire and stuff like that, I do think this movie is a lot of like how you interpret it. You know, the puzzle can fit in a couple of different ways. You know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's fun. That's what's fun about it. It's like, this go grab a cup of coffee and talk about it movie afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, so find us online. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, hit us up. And that's it. We'll talk to you next time.
Peace out.